All right, Jesse, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Man, thanks for having me back. It's been a while.
Just to bring the guests up to speed, I just gave Jesse a advanced maths question. Let's do it again for the audience. See if we get it right the second time. This was our mic check. Jesse, what's two plus two?
It's four, but you and your accent and the my headphones not working. It's very difficult. I feel like I need a little clicker doing my the hearing test.
Mate, if there's proof for anyone that thinks infantrymen are thick, that is your proof to the contrary. Mate, thanks for jumping in. Last minute we had a cancellation. It's pretty funny actually. It kind of worked out well because I had the studio. I'm staying in London for a bit, and the studio was like 7 miles away. So I was like, you know what? It's a nice day. I'm going to walk. And like just as I got to the studio, I got a text saying like, I'm really sorry I can't make the podcast. Um, which, to be honest, didn't bother me at all because it's a beautiful day. And it was otherwise I would have been sitting at the desk all afternoon. So I feel like the universe had my back on that one. Um, but what are you're doing? You're just driving to the store, which in like America is like a 6 hour drive, right?
Yeah, something like that. It's about like that. I am actually in Virginia. I was in Mississippi, and I'm driving to Maine, which is as far north in the U.S. as you can get.
What are you doing up there?
I have a film. I'm shooting a short film, so I'll be up there for the week, and then come back next week.
Does it have graphic nudity?
Not this one. It's actually about veterans and why some of them choose to go into the woods to hunt.
Oh, I thought you were going to
To
say to go.
sort.
I thought you were going to say why they go in the woods to hang themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully it won't get that dark with these guys, but we'll
I
see.
mean, yours sounds way more uplifting, but that was just. No, I was like, oh shit, this is good. This is taking a
Why do
turn.
they go to the woods to hang themselves? That's
Yeah. So what, dude? Let's talk about. I want to get your opinion as a proud. What would you say, Mississippian?
Mississippian. Yeah,
As a proud Mississippian, a proud American, a former United States Marine, well, always a United States Marine, but
I'm actually Marine retired now, so
yeah, but always a Marine with a capital
uh,
M.
that's right.
Let's talk about well, there's so much we could talk about, dude. But let's talk specifically about the kind of the view from your because obviously, like we're both in tune on social media. We talk to each other.
Hmm.
We talk to other veterans a lot, so we kind of have our view. But I'd be interested to know what they're kind of like because you're obviously plugged into the local community and obviously your family and everything like that. What's it been like the this end like this? Let's kind of talk about like the last kind of month in Afghanistan, the final kind of chapter on a part that you and I both did a tiny little piece in, but something is obviously always going to
Yep.
stay with both of us.
Yeah. So you want to know what, like, put my finger on the pulse of what it's who I'm around
Yeah,
and what they think about it,
yeah,
or my
like
personal view?
yeah, both, dude. Like, just what's it been like in? Because obviously, in Britain, there's been, I'll just tell you what it's been like over here. There's been a lot of people that have kind of been like, "Oof, well, that's awful," and people have genuine compassion for the people over there, but
Right.
it's forgotten about now. It's not in the news
Hmm.
anymore. It's forgotten about, and I think in America, and you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like there was a lot more anger than there was
Oh
here.
yeah.
So,
I
so
I
talk about that.
yeah. I agree. I think there's a lot. It's still going on, and thankfully, it's still in the news, and it's still being talked about. And sadly, it took losing the whole squad of Marines basically at once to really, like, everybody was already ticked off of how it went from what, 11 days, and also Taliban had all the cities.
Hmm.
That ticked everybody off, and I was pleasantly surprised at how many people across the board, left, right, and center, were upset about how we were getting out. Because honestly, I think this is just my personal opinion. I don't think we ever should have been there. That's just me. I
Okay,
don't think
let
that.
me expand on that bit. I mean, because I'm of the same mind of you, but what I would say is I was okay with the special forces missions that happened at first.
Oh, yeah, I was too, and I get that, but the whole, like, starting a whole different
Yeah,
war over there,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just think that it went from what we should have just went in and did what we did and left. Instead, we got stuck in there, and I think that everybody has their own reasoning of why we shouldn't be there or whatever. But I think it was there's a lot of money to be made at war, and and we got sucked into it. And I played victim to. They pushed my Patriot button, and I stood up and ran out there and did my thing, and would do it again. And that's kind of the sad part about it. Even though I know what it is, I would still run back in a heartbeat. But it's so I think that a lot more people would say that than used to, but I'm still surprised at how many people think, oh no, for the greater good, it's good that we were there. I'm glad we went. It was for a reason. It was because of 9/11. I don't buy into all that. I think, but I don't know of anybody that thinks we should still be there in a huge footprint. And so I think across the board, we're all happy about getting everybody home, but there's two ways of thinking about it. It's good that we got home. I would love to bring all the boys home across all the world and just build a fort around America and live, but there's no way we can do that. You look at World War II, we have, 20-something bases in Japan and Germany from World War II. We have a base down in Cuba from the 1800s. Like, even in the Civil War, there's still Yankee camps down in the South.
Yankees.
Bragg, all that. So it basically, wherever a war is, I mean, y'all British, y'all know all about it. You go win a war, you're going to maintain your investment, right? You're going to leave somebody there. I think that part of the plan should have been to keep some amount of U.S. presence over there to protect whether we should have had it or not in the first place. But aside from that, everybody is ticked off of how it went down, and everybody, I try to stay out of politics. I really do. But I think that this thing in the Afghanistan has actually been, I hate to say a good thing, but it's been a unifying thing in some ways in America, I think, because it's been so botched, so bad that you really can't say, no, it's all right. We did a good job. You really can't stand up for and say that it was a good thing. Because we gave them, you never give your enemies your weapons. That's everybody knows that.
But Jesse, but you do give your allies your weapons.
Oh yeah, you give your allies that for sure. So that's the thing. It's like everybody acts like it was this big just fumble, and that Biden's just an idiot. And I'm not in the military anymore. I can say what I want. I don't think there's no way that was an accident.
No,
that whole thing is not an accident.
No,
it's all planned out. I don't pretend to understand all the moving parts. I really don't. I just know it's not what we're being fed. And when the media that was so on Biden's side on this area all of a sudden turned on him like a pack of rabid dogs, it just makes it suspect to me. I don't pretend to understand what it is. It's just weird, and I notice these things. And so, I think ultimately they're trying to either start another war or start the same one back up again, because the war machine makes people money and it distracts the nation, and war is good for business. And so I think that I don't know the play. I don't know what they're trying to do, but I just don't like it. And I think losing the 13 Marines or the 12 Marines and the sailor, it was next level pissed off when that happened, because you and I both know that just shouldn't have happened. That whole deal just happened because we looked weak to the world, and it was a bad situation, and somebody saw an opportunity and took it. And either if that's our own government or somebody, I don't know who it is. It shouldn't have happened. And America knows that.
When you're on the back foot, things like that will happen. When you're not dictating the tempo, things like that will happen.
Right.
I'm firmly of the belief that, so what I'll say to this, people are like, how do we leave that stuff behind? I'm like, it has to be deliberate, because you had Marines cleaning the base before they left. That is the default of Western militaries, is to clean a base before you hand it over to an enemy. You do not leave that kind of stuff without it being from the top. And look, man, it's America, and and Britain. Britain used to do it as well, but we're not the empire anymore. America is the empire. But this is the empire playbook. You arm people throughout the world, and then to do your bidding. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case, because I don't fucking know for certain. But what I will say is it's very good timing that someone from ISIS-K just happened to get through the Taliban and blow up American troops, and now all of a sudden the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff is talking about the possibility...
Talking about working with the Taliban.
Exactly, against ISIS-K.
Yep.
What a surprise.
Yep.
What a fucking surprise. Yep. Because as you said, bro, war makes money a lot of people. You know, these helicopters that they've got, people are, oh, they're not going to be able to fly them. You don't think they're going to get a fucking contract with the people that do that? Well, and they might not have a direct contract, the same way as arms manufacturers in the US do not have a direct contract with the cartels. It doesn't matter. You know, you produce over what you need to, you produce to the level of supply, and somebody will act as an intermediary and get that to the people that need it. And then the manufacturer's happy, the person in the middle's happy, and the person in the receiving end, in this case the Taliban, are happy. There was no coincidence that we handed these things over. They could have easily been denied, either on the air, from the air or on the ground. And look, it could turn out that in 20 years' time we go, you know what? It was a bitter pill to swallow, but arming the Taliban has actually brought more stability to that region, and we've able to have more control over them, and we've able to gradually introduce rights in there through economic power. That could happen.
It could.
But I'm just playing. I'm not saying I believe this stuff, but I'm playing devil's advocate. Look at what the Japanese were doing to people in the Second World War.
Yep.
You would be hard pressed to find a more brutal regime than that. And now, people go to Japan. They say it's one of the best places I've ever visited. It took 75 years. Well, it didn't take 75 because it happened quicker than that. But it can happen. So I don't want people to give up hope on Afghanistan. I don't want people to be like, well, this is the end. People are always going to live in misery there. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe. But, like, that's more likely to happen if we give up on it and shut it off.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, and it could very well do that. My big thing, you know, and I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think that this is a big play for China, and I think half of my government is owned by China anyway, and so that's why I think it's a good move for the Chinese, and I think that they're a part of this whole equation.
Someone gave me sorry, bro. Go on.
No, you go ahead.
Someone gave me a theory today that I hadn't thought of, which I think is quite a good one, which is basically like if America arms the Taliban and they put that force kind of on that part of the, you know, on that part of that side, and the Taliban is kind of built up into a bigger stable force, and with the Muslim population of China, which is, if they start to get a bit more troublesome now that there is a more fundamentalist, stable Islamic power next to them, that might divert some of China's attention from the South China Sea. I'm not saying that checks out, but I do think that, look, you know, we all know the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Well, we couldn't beat them, so maybe this is us joining them.
Yeah, it might be, and it just doesn't smell right, you know. It's just like and for us, you know, you and I have a lot more of an emotional journey we have to get to, and all of a sudden we're going from fighting these guys to giving them our weapons and leaving with our tail tucked, looking like we lost a 20-year war. You know, that's just, we're not bred to lose. We don't lose things. Like, we don't lose. But I'm an American. Like, we don't lose. That's what we don't do that. And then look what just happened. We just did.
I hate to break it to you, but you do.
Like, we do. I know, but like, that's my mentality. Is like, we don't. Though.
No, exactly.
Even though we lost Vietnam, you still are like, no, that didn't really. You know, you overlooked that one. We don't want to talk about that one. I don't.
And Iraq,
because, you know, but like, we lost. Like, I've been being a little bit more vocal about my, you know, my disdain for my government since I retired, and so I've been putting that out there, and that's one of my biggest things is like, oh, bro, we didn't lose. Like, yeah, well, we sure didn't nothing win. Like, this was not a win, on any level at all. And so I know we have to get through that. Like, it's a hard pill to swallow, to change directions, and you know, but I will say this. You know, I've done my whole worldview has changed a lot since I've gotten out and since I got back from my deployments. And I remember, and I was there not long ago. 2018 was I was over there, so that that wasn't long. And I remember my eyes being open to some things, and I finally started looking around and being like, "This doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a war. This isn't for freedom. Like what we're over here for. Like the reason the guys to my left and right are here, or we think we're here for freedom. Like there's no way this is about a fight for freedom. Like that's not what this is about. We're not set to win this, and they're not letting us win. We could win if we wanted to, but we didn't. The game was not meant to be won.
Yeah,
I'm convinced of that. But one of the things that I saw was, I remember saying, I think we could have picked the Taliban to back instead of the ANP and ANA, and we would be no less moral.
I think
we could just pick a side. Like they're both
Yeah.
the same kind of people, and they both have the same kind of belief systems. And we want to force our way of doing things and all that. And some of them got on board with it, but really none of them really wanted to. Like there's not a whole bunch of them. The ones that are freedom loving patriots end up moving to the U.S. or the U.K. They left.
I'm probably served in
didn't
their
stay
special forces.
They did, and then as soon as they got a chance to leave, they got out and got a new country.
Mm-hmm.
And so the majority of them there aren't necessarily wanting to be like us in the West. And for some reason, we think we can go in and fix everybody, and I just
Yeah, like that's it, dude. Like the interpreters and stuff that we had, these were not women's rights advocates or anything like that. These guys were quite happy with the way things were. They just wanted a slightly more chilled version of it. They were not on the same wavelength of us when it came to stuff. And why would they be? Like that's their their culture hasn't. It's very hard, bro. Like in our cultures, we find it very difficult to convince someone to our point of view. How are we going to do that to somebody that's got a 10,000-year-old culture in another part of the world in a couple of years? Like one of the things I will say, and this is why I think like reading history and stuff is so important, is when you look through history, it's full of examples of one army fighting another, and then almost immediately they then become partners in the next endeavor. And I would use Britain and America as an example. Like you think about it on paper, America, bunch of treasonous rebels. If there's one country in the world America should hate, it's Britain. But we're now with the closest allies. But at one time we were mortal foes, and we fought wars against each other after that. But then very soon we were fighting wars on the same side, and would have done,
very, very soon,
and have done ever since.
Yep.
So I don't, obviously I'm a bit of a Roman. I love my Roman history. You look at Rome; they would go to an area, they'd fight people, they'd conquer them, and then the people are serving in their army. That's kind of that has been the norm throughout history. So I got to say, dude, and when I realized that, it does, because I will say as well, as I swallowed the pill that we'd lost years ago. This was just like. I'm like you, man. I'm very upset with how things finished because I think there was a lot more people that could have been saved, and I think that those Marines only died. Like, I'm not saying that no one would have died because there's always that danger, but I think that when you give up you give up, like we're relying on Taliban for checkpoints, and you give up. There's a lot to be said for owning the battle space and being the big bully on the battle space.
Yeah, which we've always been good at. Like,
yeah,
that's and so the reason just how we backed out of that. I mean, why in the world do you leave the equipment and the people, and then the military leave, and then not expect it to be a bad situation?
Yeah,
like the boots on, like the teeth need to be the last thing to go, and that it didn't make sense. And it seems the way it's being painted, at least in our media, is that it was basically an accident and this big fumble, but I just don't buy it.
And bro,
there's no way it was an accident.
I'll say this as well. I get very frustrated with veterans that give it the whole, well, we won line. I'm like, dude, do you not realize that by taking that attitude and refusing to look at this in the face for what it is, you just
We're going to do it again, in 5 years.
You're passing this on to some young fucking guy that's joining now. You are passing this on to him because you won't look in the face. It doesn't diminish what anybody fucking
and see
did.
What it is.
It doesn't diminish anything. Like, it doesn't, like, look, bro, at the end of the day, as you said yourself earlier, we'd go again knowing everything we know now. So I don't want to hear this stuff from people like, oh, well, the people died for nothing. No, they died because they wanted to be there. Everyone knew it was, none of us were there that didn't want to be there. We all volunteered. We could have all refused to go. Yeah, it would have cost you your job, but you could have refused to go. So I don't like hearing this people like, oh, people die for nothing. No one died for nothing. They died doing what they love for a job. They probably were having the time of their life, at the time. But also this thing.
It's one of the better ways to go, in my opinion.
I actually think so too, dude. Because you actually go at you're almost. I don't want to say that it is the peak of your life, but it's certainly a peak.
Yeah, and that's what that's part of the. Yeah, I'm the same with you. I don't like. So there's a lot of people in the veteran community right now that are hurting, obviously, because a lot of guys, this is like ripping us. You and I kind of saw it coming. A lot of guys, they just woke up one day and this is like what just happened, and the whole, So when I say, I've tried to change my verbiage to not say that it was all for nothing, but because I had several people that I respect a lot come to me and be like, look. Like, there's a lot of really weak-minded veterans out there that the only thing they have holding on to keep them from blowing their brains out is that they did something in Afghanistan a long time ago. And if you take that from them, then they're just going to kill themselves. I understand that train of thought. I really do. And so I've tried to figure out, and I'm trying to do it right now as I'm talking to you. I haven't figured it out. But, how do we talk about it? And how do we say, when I say it was all for nothing, I'm not saying what I did was for nothing. I'm not saying that my buddy that got blown up was I'm not diminishing what they did, but if we don't say, look at our government and look what they made us go through for nothing, that's what I'm trying to get people to wake up. I mean, I know that's overused nowadays. Like, hey, wake up. But I mean it. Like, people are lulled to sleep into this. Really, we've been brainwashed to think a certain way. And it's like, we got to look at our governments and realize that they're not always the good guys. We might think we are, but we're not always the good guys. And so that's where I'm at. It's like, how do we talk about this that makes our guys that were on the ground not want to blow their brains out, the weak ones, but also call it for what it is and be like, yeah, kind of what, if you do all this and then all of a sudden the way we turned it over, it kind of looks like it's for nothing. Let's talk about that.
Exactly.
But I understand. I'm still trying to be careful to guys that are still I don't want anybody to kill themselves over it. But
anybody listening right now, do not take the shotgun out your mouth. Do not listen to Jesse.
Hey, I've been there. I've been in that place. I know, everybody can be there, especially the alpha, the lions, the alpha dogs, man. So, the ones that you'd think nobody would struggle with that, they're the ones that struggle with it a lot of times the most and the longest because they don't ever want to admit it because it'll ruin their career or ruin how other people will look at them. And so I'm not knocking on people that are doing that. I think that we're doing our whole society a disjustice to not call it for what it is.
Hey, bro, it's like it's doing anything in the military. It's like, what do you do after you've done you're on exercise? You have a debrief. You look at what went well, what went bad. That's what we should be constantly debriefing ourselves, what are we doing in life? It's something we should be looking at all the time. If we spent 20 years fighting somewhere, fuck yeah, we should be dissecting that. What went well? What went bad? What would we do again?
And that go ahead.
I was just going to say, bro, something that really stood out to me, which really just fucking made me furious, was how many of those, I don't want to call them kids because they're not kids, because they're men, because they are serving their country, and they are men. But for our age now, looking back, it's kind of like, oh, these are kids. But no, obviously they're men, young men. But they were not old enough to get a beer in America, but they were old enough to get blown apart by a fucking suicide bomber for America. That's fucked up. So fucked up.
Yep. And they were, they weren't even born when that war started.
Right. They were as old as the war. Now, if that is not shocking to people, that these guys lived their entire life with this war going on and then died at the end of it, that should piss you off.
Yep.
That should fucking piss you off because, people should be held, here's that word, accountable.
Yep.
We all know people that have been in trouble for negligently discharging their weapon. We know people that have been kicked out of the army for using testosterone or another, or steroids, or for smoking weed or for doing a line of coke.
Or losing a pair of MVGs.
We know people that have had all that. And yet you have these people who, whether deliberately or not, handed the enemy all these weapons, all this equipment. Now you can say, oh, well, it wasn't ours, it was the ANA. Look, here's my take on that. When you fire a bullet, you are responsible for that bullet from the moment it leaves the barrel until it lands.
Yep.
Agreed? So
Yep.
if you are giving weapons to somebody, you are responsible for those weapons. And if you think that they're going to fall into enemy's hands, it doesn't matter if you've given it to someone else. You can't just go, oh, well, I handed it off to the ANA. You fucking get them back.
Yep.
And we all, and the sad thing about this, bro, is we all know that not a single high-ranking officer or politician will suffer for this. Not one.
And what do we do? What do we do? Because that's where I'm at now. I've got to that point. It's like, all right, now what? Now what do we do? Because have you seen Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, for those that don't know, he basically just asked a question. He was like, hey, we need accountability for this. Like, what just happened? Let's figure out what happened. And he came to work the next day and they fired him from his job. He was a battalion commander. Yeah. And he since has turned in he resigned his commission at 17 years, 3 years away from retirement, gave it all back. And he's probably still going to get court-martialed and doing brick time in the jail for simply asking for accountability, simply asking what he has to command underneath him as a battalion commander. Just like you and I as squad leaders or platoon sergeants, like we have to demand accountability for our gear, right? Because we have to answer to higher. So does it make sense what I'm trying to say? Like,
absolutely. You know what?
Where does that stop? Where does it go from looking down and taking care of the guys underneath you to stopping and saying, all right, we can't question what goes on above you? Because I don't know about you, but like as a team leader, I would question a squad leader all the time and we'd come to blows with it. Or a platoon sergeant, and he would crush you. But that was part of it. That, instead of being frowned on by that NCO Corps, it was actually kind of respected. Be like, all right, if you want to kick back, this is the way it is. Yeah. And you learn through that. Yeah. But at some point that we lose it.
Absolutely.
And it's always in the officer rank. I'm not busting on my officer guys, but it's always the higher up it goes, the more all of a sudden they go from looking down to taking care of their Marines to looking up and sucking dick.
And this is the problem, bro. It's like when you've got people in ones or twos speaking up against anything, they pick you off. If 100 battalion commanders in the Marine Corps
did what Stu did,
yeah, I don't know if you've got 100 battalions, but I'm just 100 officers of colonel rank, and I know you've got those. I'd stuck their hands up and go, you know what? No, we want accountability. The same way that I remember when I was down in Camp Pendleton, I think it was down in Camp Pendleton, someone lost a rifle on exercise and some kit. And they had everyone back there scouring the train, and those people were held accountable, as they should have been. And it's like, look, and this is I posted this the other day, like one of Napoleon's maxims. I won't read the whole thing out, but it basically goes along the lines of, if you don't believe, and this goes for Biden, this goes for the generals under him, because Biden's thing is, I was following Trump's plan. Well, you know what? You're the commander-in-chief, so if you don't believe in that plan, you don't fucking do it.
Exactly.
And if
wasn't the plan.
Yeah, but if you're the secretary of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, if you're the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, you don't agree with the president's plan, you don't do it. You tell him no. And if you have to resign, you resign. And if the next person up doesn't agree with it, they resign. And that's how it goes until the person at the top goes, you know what? Maybe I need to fucking reevaluate this plan. But people, let's be quite honest, man. Those fucking Marines are dead. Like I said, I'm not saying no one would have died because, things happen, right? I'm not saying no one's would have died. But there's a reason that events like that are so rare. Because we're not always on the back foot like that. Those events happen when we're on the back foot. And if there had been some more moral fiber and some integrity higher up the chain of command, some of those Marines, if not all of them, would still be alive. That is the bottom fucking line.
100%.
Right. I want to finish on a lighter note, bro, because we are getting short on time. What I do want to say, and this has been one of the most positive things I think I have seen in my life, is the way that veterans of Afghanistan, and people who weren't even involved in it, rallied around the interpreters, the XSF, Afghan XF and stuff.
Yep.
Rallied around them to get them out. I have never seen anything like it. I have never heard of anything like it. And it gives me massive pride in my fellow veterans to have seen that. How about you?
I agree. It gives me pride and it gives me hope that we may actually be able to crack this system that is just so rotten. Because that's what it is. It's a system that, those battalion commanders that didn't do what Stu did, all those colonels that we were just talking about that could have done it, they all started out probably like us, thinking, hey, this won't change. And then the longer you're in the system, that you give a little bit of yourself to it every day, and then one day you turn around and you have no moral fiber to stand on.
Yeah.
Because you know what I'm saying? And so seeing how the Veteran Corps handled this and is handling it, not quietly, but professionally, I think that there's a way. I don't know how, honestly. I don't know how it can happen without it getting ugly, but I think there's a way we can crack this system we don't, like you and I know we're running short on time, but we talked the other day about I think you put a post on Instagram about it, but Vietnam guys, they tried to tell me this before I got in and I didn't listen.
Yeah.
And I remember I've had in the past couple weeks, I've had so many conversations go through my head from my Vietnam friends before I got in that was like, wow, like this is exactly what they told me would happen. And so it's like, and then I'm turning around and trying to tell my little brothers that now are, 18, 19, wanting to go in the Marine Corps to go off to war and do what I did at their age. How do you tell them this is the third generation, right? Because Vietnam did it. They tried to warn us. We didn't listen. And then we all went and did it. And now I'm trying to tell I can see it on the wall. But at the same time, I'm grateful for the experience that I had. And I feel like that because of the experience that I had in the Marine Corps, that I will be able to help my country and the world out in the long run because I had that experience. But I think that the experience, it wasn't my service then that helped my country. It's my experience and how I'm going to use it from here going forward, I think, is when I will be used the most for my country. If that makes sense what I'm saying.
Absolutely, mate.
I'm not saying the 19-year-old kid in the sand really did much for my country, but I think that the experience then, what I learned and how I can take it to now when I'm 31, whatever I am now, going forward, I think that is what's going to help. Just like look at a lot of the leaders.
You're too wise.
I'm 31. I almost said 30, but I have to add that extra one, 31. But you look at a lot of the leaders in history, and I'm a Southern boy, so I read up on a lot of General Stonewall Jackson, General Lee, all these guys. They had their combat experience as young 20-year-old dudes, and then they thought their life was over. Jackson became a boring professor, and he was in his 30s, and nobody knew who he was. And then he became known as Stonewall Jackson, and we still learn his tactics at West Point today. Like, he's the one that used the defilade for the first time in modern combat, and we use it now. And so I think there's a lot of good coming out of our community of veterans today, like we just talked about. That's to wrap it up in a shell. That's what I'm excited about is I think that we have a lot of good, solid dudes that had a lot of good experience that will be able to help change this country. But it has to happen. Like, we have to break the system.
Bro, I love it. I agree with all of that. Safe drive. Thanks for jumping on today, mate. It's great to catch up with you as always. I love you, bro, and I will catch you soon.
Love you too, man.
Catch you soon, mate.
Out.
Safe drive.